My name is Jen Colby. I'm the Executive Director of the Northeast Pasture Consortium. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Pasture Consortium, largely because we're the best kept secret, a little bit like Extension, but not. We have a fairly large region and we've had a fairly small staff over time, but we've been steadily doing our work and bringing together people from around the region for almost 30 years. And we're ready to build new partnerships in new places so we can grow in the future. So I'm going to do just a little bit of the overview of the day. I'm going to do a welcome and then going to turn it over to our awesome hosts that you folks know. I have someone and Amanda Greff to talk about it's the Western Maryland Research and Education Center. They've done there. We're going to be talking a little bit later about managing pasture and forages in extremes of wet and dry conditions with Ed Raver, who's right here in the room, WVU, and we have Pat Kaiser from University of Tennessee, who's going to be joining us online because unfortunately late last week. We have an awesome barbecue lunch from Jay's, and then we're going to hit some hot topics in the afternoon: field grazing and methane emissions and PFAS, all of those toxic chemicals that people talk about. Our customers may actually be asking us about. We can't answer questions. Human action or how what's your problem there? And then we have a bit of a break. We're setting up some posters in the other room. We also had some opportunity, and I'll explain more about it. The pasture research priorities over on this side. We've got a nice break, and then the folks are come on to Hagerstown and have dinner this evening at 6 in Hagerstown with a couple of local farmers that are going to be presenting value-added dairy and first-generation farming and multi-generational farming. And so I'm really excited about the day because I don't think this is in the presentation. I'll just let you know. So the Pasture Consortium, because we do have a large region and we stretch from Maine to West Virginia, we cover the 12-state region. What we typically do is we join with someone else who is a local partner who has local folks that they work with, and we bring our annual meeting to join with someone else's event that's already happening. And then we're able to bring in some topical research, things that are of use for some of the issues that are of use for local folks. And then we also update the research priorities that we give back to ARS, and we give back to universities and other researchers and policymakers too. And so then it's feeding all of this information from farm level, the land level, up into the policy level, which isn't the thing that happens. And that's a big part of why we exist. So I'm just really delighted that we have an opportunity this year to join with Mountains Today, Grazing Alliance, and Maryland Extension, and just be big on addition to the other partners because they've just been fantastic to work with, and I'm really excited about our new partnership. So the Pasture Consortium, like I said, it started about 30 years ago. It was started as a multi-state project, which was part of USDA. It actually had some funding for USDA, and then somewhere about 15 years ago, it ended up on its own. It's been hosted by different universities. It was hosted by West Virginia, by Ed, primarily Ed. It was hosted at WVU by you, as I understand it. And then it moved to the University of Vermont as well. And the universities, because of the research portion and the connection in with extension dollars and with USDA dollars, it's always had that relationship. And then we've just always done different research on all kinds of topics. We've done human nutrition, we've done beetles, we've had a whole processing theme one year. We've done, gosh, a whole lot of work on high density grazing one year. We had a whole bunch of different researchers come in and talk about that. So really, our topics can vary completely based on what is going on in the area, what folks are actually, the questions that folks are actually asking, and what is happening in the research front. And human health, we did a big push on understanding what we can and cannot say, what we do and do not know on the human health side as well. Kind of be a biochemist and talking about fatty acids and really trying to understand that and what actually causes heart disease, and whether that's beef or not. So our purpose has been to essentially, we're a big triangle. We link producers, farmers, technical service provider folks with researchers on the ground trying to test questions, trying to come up with answers for folks, and then feeding that into policymakers, whether that is NRCS folks, whether that is who are doing work on individual farms, whether that is USDA folks setting policy, whether it's USDA folks having a sense of how money moves through, flows through. One of the folks who is, we'll get to it, but one of the folks who is a liaison with the Pasture Consortium is an FSA person. Just to understand that there are different ways that we interface with the federal government that farmers do. We don't always have a mechanism to be able to let people know what works and doesn't work. And so that's a role that the consortium can play. Our membership is open, it's all members now, you're welcome. Hope that's okay. So basically, anybody who's interested in learning more about pasture-based livestock farming and all of the different aspects of that. And then we typically structure into a public side because we have lots of university members, nonprofit members. And then we also have state federal folks as well. And then we also have consider the private sector side of that, our industry partners, the livestock farmers and other producers as well. Anything essentially that's privately owned. And that's just the way that the consortium has always been set up. And in the last few years, we've actually adjusted our structure, and we've still maintained this public-private side because it's a big piece of how we can be powerful. We're not just a farmer organization. We're not just a public entity organization. We are actually an organization that brings both groups together. So our board, we're a 501c3 now. We haven't, that's actually relatively, but we still have public and private sector board members to get that representation. And then I'm the executive director, Jessica Williamson. Some of you may know her from formerly of Penn State, as our associate director. She's away, sorry. The family thing. And then we have liaisons with Soder is our ARS liaison. Damon Mee is our NRCS liaison. He's NRCS New Hampshire. And then Dave Smith is our FSA liaison. He's out of West Virginia. So we get production, and actually pretty much every one of our board members, almost every one of our board members is a producer, as well as other things that they may do. So we all get representation from our states and as producers as well. So our founding goals have focused on research and extension and technical assistance and identifying this and developing some partnerships and assisting producers who not really have a lot of capacity, staff capacity to help people implement grazing systems. And then we also wanted to disseminate information. And we always need to have an animal grazing law saying we can't do these presentations all text. Just can't do it. And we're back. So we've adjusted our guiding principles now, really digging into the fact that we're an outreach organization and a connection organization. We are working across as many of our states. If you have connections, by the way, into Delaware and Rhode Island and New Jersey, we are looking for more ways to connect with those states that we're underconnected with. We're welcoming of that. And then all the different ways we can get people together, whether it is online, it is partly why we are committed to a hybrid conference. Because we do have, I know that there's at least one producer on right now who's watching us from Connecticut. And I know that there are folks who are signed in from Maine. And maybe they can't drive down, but they can still learn from you. They can still be part of this conversation. And we as a region can feel a lot more connected to each other. Because it was a great reminder a week or so ago out in Tucson at the National Grazing Conference. The Northeast folks came, there were about, I don't know, 25, 27 of us who were out there, and it was like, it's like a different world. We meet people that are nothing like us, who do the same kind of thing we do, but we do it in a really different way, and there's so much we learn from each other with those different perspectives. So that's the big part of this connection too. And always asking, so every event, we ask, we have some sort of mechanism to ask. What are the things that are important to you? And how can we take that information and prioritize it and package it in such a way to get to people who are making decisions, who need to understand what it is that you go through and what your experience is like. And then a lot of sharing with newsletter and social media and just trying to get as much information out there to folks. And then using all of that, all of the things that we collect to inform policy. So an example was earlier this year, this is less technically this year, the NRCS was taking comments for the updated 528 grazing standard, which is some dry stuff. If you think about it, those practice standards are pretty dry, and yet at the same time, they have the ability to impact what you do really heavily, really important. So we took in information, we asked people to give us some written comment that we put together from the Northeast and just say, this is what we've learned from the people that we talked to. We held like a Zoom lunch and people went over the changes, the proposed changes to the 528. And then put that all together in a letter. Ultimately, we don't know how things will change when we put that out there, but we know that they're not going to change to reflect us if we don't put it out there. So we've got it at least try. So the asking piece. So that's a big part of what and why we do redo the research priorities every year. What we did this last January was the last time we had a major conference and we asked folks. We went through an entire process asking people the question of what are the questions that you have as you go about your daily work? Whether that is as a technical service provider or an industry person, what are the questions that farmers are asking you that you just don't have answers for? As a farmer, if you're moving a fence, if you're on a tractor, you're paying, your brain is always doing something, regardless of what your body is doing, you're always thinking about these questions. Those flip chart sheets over there to your left are as a result of over 300, almost 350 comments that we got, individual posts that we got, and we condensed them down into 10 basic themes. And under each theme, there's about 4-ish questions. And those are like representative questions. Those are actual questions from the post-its. And those representative questions gives you a sense of the kinds of things that people have been asking. This is a perfect opportunity. And this is a northern group. We were working last time with the New England Grazing Network. So we were in Massachusetts and we were working with 6 New England states and New York. And so these may or may not represent the kinds of questions that you have. So what we would love for you to do in the course of today and tomorrow, at any time, and feel free to go back lots of times, is to take, I have to put the dots out, sorry, they're not on there, right this second. Take 5 dots. And if you see a question that is something that you wonder about, put a dot next to it. If you think it's important, put a dot next to it. And I also have to put some post-its out there. But if you have questions that aren't on, we want you to add post-its. And it's fine. You get to decide which category it goes into. It's all fine. It's up to you. We're adults. But what are the questions that you have? And if they're not there, add them. Because we want to keep growing and adding to the breadth of the questions. And so when we completed the report that brought all the stuff together, so that's on our website. That gets shared with the universities. They know some folks know to come to us, some folks we send them out to. The USDA Pasture Lab looks at that, ARS Pasture Lab looks at that. The Food Systems Research Lab at ARS up in Vermont looks at that as well. And they have a lot of new staff and they don't know what the issues of importance are for this region. So this is the opportunity to guide years and years of research that will, in theory, come back to help you all. It's the best way that we can help you have you help us to help you. If we can put it together, we can get it to folks. Thank you very much. You know where I was going with that, right? So we'll have time to do that at any break. I'll make sure that the hostess are out there. And there are folks joining us online, and we've got that as a discussion. So if rather this works for anybody who is in person or online, it's part of a discussion on Cuba. If you just want to drop something into Cuba, that's fine too. Just ask your questions there and we'll take the rest. And so some of the other things that the consortium has been doing is we're pretty closely partnered with National Grazing Lands Coalition as well. I'm on the Nat GLC's board, and we have been working closely with Nat GLC's Northeast coordinator, Kurt Bishop. And this was in 23, this was actually a part of a bus tour that Nat GLC did in Vermont at multiple locations. So they do a bus tour in the off years. So we've been partnering on a number of events. We've also been working with Maryland in the past, which has been awesome. We did that bus tour, and we have funding to offer scholarships to help folks get to events. There are some folks who are able to use scholarships to get to this event. There are folks who are able to get out to the National Grazing Conference. There are other opportunities as well when we know that there's something coming up, or even if folks find something that they want to get to. As long as we have scholarship dollars, we're very open to taking scholarship applications to help people get to events that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get to. Because we learn and we bring it back and connect with our communities, and we do a better job grazing. Ultimately what it comes down to. So there's various ways to interface with the consortium. Grazingguide.net is our website. You probably all know that, you're probably registered there. If not, we do have a YouTube and a Facebook, and on our Grazing Guide, there's also a newsletter set up link, although all the folks who are registered are going to be signed up. And then one of the other sort of side projects we have, and a little bit of shameless self-promotion, is that I'm actually the host of a podcast called Choosing to Farm, and the consortium has had some grant funding to support a few episodes that are focused in the consortium region. And I'm always looking for new folks. It's aimed at first and returning generation, folks who've had a big change. I'm a returning generation farmer myself. It's skipped 2 generations in my family, and I've had to learn a whole lot of things. And what I thought was unique to myself has turned out to not be unique to me. It's what a lot of first and returning generation folks have to do is rebuild from scratch, and there's a lot to be learned along the way from that. Anyway, so if anyone has any interest in being on it, sharing your story, there was one of our farmer hosts who I will not mention because she's in the room, that I would love to chat with after yesterday's farm visit. She was awesome, and more people should share their story. And then our general mailbox is this, and my contact information. And thank you all for joining us on this adventure today.